What if intelligence isn't something a child is born with, but something quietly built every single day? While most parents try to teach more, Japanese families focus on something almost no one notices. They don't chase intelligence, they construct it. From the moment a child wakes up, there's a rhythm, not rigid, but consistent enough for the brain to recognize patterns. And neuroscience shows something powerful here. Predictable environments reduce cortisol, the stress hormone that blocks learning. Less stress, more neural connections forming. But here's what most people miss. It's not about discipline the way you think. It's about removing chaos before it ever starts. Meals happen at similar times. Sleep follows a flow. Transitions are smooth. And the child's brain begins to expect, to prepare, to organize itself. This creates something rare. A mind that isn't reacting, but anticipating. And anticipation is where intelligence begins. Because the brain doesn't just learn from information, it learns from structure. But what happens when this structure is missing? Most people think intelligence grows from stimulation. More toys, more screens, more information thrown at the child. But research in developmental neuroscience suggests the opposite. Too much unpredictability overwhelms the brain. And an overwhelmed brain doesn't learn. It reacts. In Japanese homes, something subtle happens every day. The child doesn't guess what comes next. They know. Wake up, eat, play, rest, repeat. It may look simple, almost boring to an outsider, but inside the brain, something extraordinary is happening. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for focus, planning, and decision-making, starts organizing itself faster. Why? Because it's not busy dealing with chaos. It's free to build connections. Studies show that predictable routines strengthen executive functions, and executive functions are directly linked to intelligence. Not IQ as a number, but real-world intelligence. The ability to focus, solve problems, stay calm under pressure. But here's where it gets deeper. Japanese parents don't just create routines. They protect them, gently, consistently, without constant negotiation. And the child learns something powerful without being told. The world is stable, and when the world feels stable, the mind becomes stronger. But stability alone isn't enough, because the next step is what truly shapes how the child thinks. Most parents ask for attention. Focus now. Pay attention. Sit still. But attention isn't something you can command. It's something you train. In Japan, this training doesn't look like training at all. It begins in silence. Moments where nothing is competing for the child's mind. No constant background TV, no overstimulation, no rapid distractions. Because neuroscience shows something critical. Every time attention is interrupted, the brain pays a cost. It resets, it loses depth, it weakens focus pathways. But when a child stays with one activity longer, even something simple, the brain starts building sustained attention circuits. And these circuits are the foundation of deep learning. Japanese children are often encouraged to finish what they start, not with pressure, but with presence. The parent stays nearby, calm, observant, guiding without invading. This creates a powerful internal shift. The child doesn't focus because they are forced. They focus because nothing is pulling them away. And over time, something changes. The mind becomes less reactive and more intentional, less scattered and more precise. But here's the part almost no one realizes. Attention alone doesn't create intelligence. It needs something else to grow, something deeper than focus. Most people separate emotion from intelligence, as if thinking clearly means feeling less. But neuroscience proves the opposite. A child's emotional stability directly affects how well they learn. In Japanese culture, emotions aren't suppressed. They are regulated. And this regulation starts with the parent. Calm voice, controlled reactions, minimal escalation. Because when a child is exposed to constant emotional spikes, their brain shifts into survival mode. And in survival mode, learning shuts down. The amygdala, the brain's alarm system, takes control, blocking access to reasoning and memory. But when the environment stays emotionally stable, the brain feels safe, and safety unlocks cognition. Japanese parents rarely rush to fix every emotion. They allow the child to feel, observe, process. This builds emotional resilience, and resilience creates mental clarity, because a calm mind processes faster, remembers better, decides smarter. But emotional stability alone isn't the final piece, because intelligence also depends on something even more invisible. Most people think discipline is something strict, rules, punishment, control, but in Japan, discipline is quiet, almost invisible, but deeply consistent. Children are guided to do small things every single day. Put shoes in place, organize materials, clean after using. Simple actions, repeated endlessly. And this repetition builds something powerful in the brain, neural pathways associated with responsibility and order. Because the brain doesn't develop through big lessons. It develops through small, repeated behaviors. Studies in behavioral psychology show that consistency shapes identity, and identity shapes action. So instead of telling a child, be smart, Japanese parents build habits that create a structured mind, and a structured mind processes information faster, because it doesn't waste energy on disorganization. Over time, these small actions compound, and what looks like simple discipline becomes cognitive efficiency. But here's the shift that changes everything, because even discipline, even structure, isn't the deepest layer. Most people believe children learn when they are taught, but in Japan, much of learning happens before a single word is spoken. Through observation, the child watches how the parent behaves, speaks, reacts, and the brain absorbs patterns automatically. This is supported by mirror neuron research, neurons that activate not only when we act, but when we observe others acting, which means a child doesn't just hear instructions, they become what they see repeatedly. So instead of explaining discipline, parents demonstrate it. Instead of demanding calmness, they embody it. And the child's brain mirrors those patterns. Quietly, consistently, deeply, over time, behavior becomes internalized without resistance. Because it was never forced, only modeled. This creates a powerful advantage. Learning without friction. But here's the part most people underestimate. Observation alone isn't enough, because what truly locks learning into the brain is something even more precise. Most people associate repetition with boredom, doing the same thing again and again. But for the brain, repetition is how mastery is built. In Japanese routines, repetition is constant, but never overwhelming. Children repeat actions daily, but within a calm, stable environment. And neuroscience shows that repetition strengthens synaptic connections, making tasks faster, easier, more automatic. But here's the difference. There is no excessive pressure attached, because pressure activates stress, and stress disrupts learning pathways. Instead, repetition is natural, expected, part of the flow. The child doesn't feel tested, they feel guided. And this creates something rare, consistency without resistance, which is one of the strongest predictors of long-term intelligence development. Because intelligence isn't about how fast you learn once, it's about how consistently you improve over time. But even repetition, even modeling, still isn't the final layer, because there is one last element that ties everything together. Most people try to change the child, correct behavior, fix mistakes, give instructions. But in Japan, the focus shifts to something far more powerful. They design the environment instead, because behavior is often a response to surroundings, not just personality. Toys are limited, spaces are organized, distractions are controlled. Everything has a place and a purpose. This reduces decision fatigue, even in children, and science confirms this. A structured environment lowers cognitive overload, allowing the brain to allocate energy to learning instead of reacting. The child doesn't have to fight chaos, so the mind stays clear, and clarity accelerates understanding. Over time, this creates a subtle but powerful advantage, a brain trained in order, not confusion. Here's the final shift. Because even the perfect environment is not the true secret. Most parents focus on results, grades, performance, achievements. But Japanese parenting often works in reverse. They shape identity first. Before expecting outcomes, the child is guided to see themselves as responsible, capable, part of a group, not through praise, but through participation, helping at home, contributing, being included. And psychology shows something crucial. Identity drives behavior more than motivation. When a child believes, this is who I am, actions follow naturally. So instead of pushing intelligence, they build a self-image aligned with discipline, focus, and contribution. And this changes everything, because the child doesn't try to become intelligent, They act in ways that are intelligent. But here's what completes the entire system. The piece that connects everything you've seen so far. Most people look for instant results. Faster learning, quicker development, visible intelligence. But in Japan, the transformation is almost invisible because it doesn't happen in moments. It happens in layers, routine, stability, attention, emotion, repetition, environment, identity. Each one seems small on its own, but together, they compound. And compounding is how real intelligence is built. Neuroscience calls this neuroplasticity, the brain reshaping itself through repeated experience over time, not through pressure, not through intensity, but through consistency, day after day, without dramatic changes. And that's why most people miss it, because nothing looks extraordinary in the moment. But months later, years later, the difference is undeniable. A child who focuses longer, thinks clearer, reacts calmer, learns faster, not because they were forced, but because their system was built differently. And here's the question that changes everything. If intelligence is being shaped every single day, what kind of system is shaping yours? Now I want to hear your opinion. Which part made you stop and think for a second? Was it the calm, the rhythm, or the way babies feel everything you feel? If this made sense to you, just comment, "I like the video." And if you're someone who wants to raise a child with more peace, more emotional balance, subscribe to the channel now. Because this kind of knowledge doesn't just help in one moment, it shapes an entire life.